Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Sush.
And my name is James.
It's one of those periods in Sky Fantasy Football, James, where, in the first 3 or 4 weeks, depending on when the overhaul is, you kind of set your team. You're not really kind of doing much. We're not in too dissimilar a state now with the overhaul only 2 match weeks away, where the options and the things that people are doing are getting less and less until we do get to overhaul. Interesting pod. We're going to cover off, obviously, the 9 game days that we have up until overhaul. Quite a few people are looking for coverage for 1 or 2 single game days that we've got coming up. And, of course, the questions that we've had in on Twitter. And all that kind of good stuff that we usually do. How is your week going so far, sir?
What you mean based on the one game there's been?
Oh, sorry, yeah. I suppose it doesn't count really as a double game week, does it?
No, not really. Since last Wednesday, what have we had? Just a game last night, isn't it, in terms of Premier League? So I did make a transfer last night. I obviously had Calvert-Lewin going into last night. Calvert-Lewin is still there. And I spoke to you on our Patreon pod on Monday and said it would be one of, hey.
Oh, it had to ring, didn't it?
Of course, it's a podcast. Sujit's fan's going to go off. That's another YouTube copyright strike. Thanks, mate. JWP and Bumo or Norgard were the choices. Now, Norgard was the most sensible to go and buy because we spoke about him saying, look, they got 4 games. He might get 4 points in all of them. And with a captaincy, you're doubling that up to basically make you 20 points. Worth it. Particularly in my case, I was selling Salah, right? So I understand for others were like, oh, I don't know if there's a gain. Lots of people skipped it. Fine. I think for me with Salah, it was definite sell. You're looking at effective 5-0 with a captaincy. And I decided to punt and Bumo back in, mate.
Why have I still got Salah in my team? I need to get rid of him.
We can come on to options for that. I decided to punt him. He got a hat-trick at Port Vale in the Cup at the weekend. And I just thought, looking at it, if there wasn't the captaincy, I wouldn't be making the transfer, right? I wouldn't be buying a Brentford player now, even with the game. So I thought, look, which one's likelier to go bigger? Which, obviously, I knew Mbumo was more likely to return a 2-pointer than Norgard. But Mbumo, as seen with the penalty against Watford that Friday night, 10-pointer times 2 to 20. Yes, thank you. He obviously knew Tony would be back on pens if they had one. But that's why I went with Mbumo. And I'll take the little extra 6 points he got over with captaincy effective over Norgard. Although Norgard could well pull that back with the 3 games remaining. Because Brentford's remaining fixture, Liverpool, Manchester United and Wolves, don't inspire joy that he's going to get returns. But, I mean, I'll take the return last night. If he gets 3 more 2s, he's 16 points. Okay, fine. We'll take that. We'll bank that.
What do you have tonight? Just Bowen or Bowen and Antonio?
Jared Bowen, yeah. Yourself?
I've got 2. So I had 2 players last night, Ward-Prowse and Norgard. And with the formation, I went with, firstly, I thought Brentford would get something out of the game.
They got well beat.
They got slapped, mate. So I went, the difference between Norgard versus Ward-Prowse and captaincy was possibly 3 points. It wasn't like the biggest screw up ever. But I picked up 5 of Ward-Prowse and 4 of Norgard. But I've got Bowen and Antonio tonight. So I've had 2 yesterday and 2 today, which is more than most will have had. So I'm hoping to climb up again. If you'll remember, probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, James, I said I wanted to be inside the top 5K by overhaul. So I was 10K at the time. I'm now 5,500.
Wow, look at you, mate.
Touching distance of hitting that first goal of 5K. And then from 5K, we can march on to 2K. And then if we can get to a 3-digit rank, all the better. But it's going to obviously get harder as we get closer to it. But yeah, making progress slowly and surely. And no, not as much Dross or Deadwood left in my team as well. Although obviously Salah's not got any games for a while, so I may as well move him on, depending on what I need. So yeah, doing okay. Quick, very, very quick shout. Dave's still top.
Mr. Parents is still top, is he?
He's still top by a couple
Good
of
man.
points. Keep it going, Dave. We're going to root for you each and every week until you can't win anymore. But until then, keep it going anymore. Keep it going, my friend.
Go on,
Keep
Dave.
going.
Dave, listen, Sudger's up to 5K. Is coming for you now. I'm 1,000.
Do you know how many points between me and Dave? 300.
300's got to be,
yeah, mad. Absolute madness, mate.
I mean,
But,
he's about 197 points clear of me, right? So
wow.
I ain't catching that.
Wow.
I'm 1,009th. He's my
okay.
I jumped about 150 places last night, which I was quite surprised about. I think so many people skipped it last night, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
So which one of the two are you going to go with tonight?
Oh, it's armbanded. It's a bust on Antonio.
You know the ownership between the two, don't you?
I'm going to check it.
Bowen is roughly 50% top thousands. Antonio is 20% top thousand. Does that influence the decision?
No.
I mean, you're so, with respect,
far down. I'm going to go
behind.
differential.
Yeah,
I'm tempted to go differential. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if there's going to be huge amounts. I don't think it's a very straightforward call. There isn't huge amounts in it. Bowen is in good form, but he was particularly quiet against Leeds at the weekend, even though he didn't.
And scored.
Yeah, exactly that. 92nd minute. But where Antonio worked hard, and he loves a game against Norwich. So I don't think there's much in it, to be honest with you.
What would you do if suddenly the team dropped and neither of them were in it?
Oh, I'd move. I'd make a move. I've got plenty of transfers spare.
You'd still buy another West Ham player?
Yeah.
So who would you buy?
Well, that depends who's in the team, mate.
We can assume Declan Rice probably would be. Is that what you do?
I'd go to Lanzini for the upside.
I don't. What price
he's on
is he? I wouldn't even know.
Right? He's going to be cheap, isn't he? 7, maybe 7.5. I'll look that up, James. While
I'm going to beat you to it, mate. Manuel Lanzini is 7.6, currently in 0.3% of the top 1,000. I'll tell you what, if people don't have any West Ham investment and want to buy differential, I really do not mind that right now.
Yep. I mean, he scored 51 points this season. Not too bad. 4 goals already this year for Lanzini with limited minutes.
And we assume he's on the pens now as well, as you said as well.
Yeah.
I only have Bowen tonight, and I don't really have any doubt that he's going to start. If he doesn't, I will buy Antonio tonight.
Okay.
I would sell Bernardo Silva. I've currently managed to sit back in my team with 5 in midfield. I would sell Bernardo Silva knowing I'm definitely not using him for the armband. And I would buy Antonio tonight back in. Then what I would do about Josh King, I really don't know. But I would deal with problem number 1 first. Can't be skipping a potential captaincy for one of the best attacking teams in the league home to Norwich. Can't skip it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, tonight's going to be a 1-0. Tonight, it's written that we should be going and beating them handsomely, and we're in good form, and it's just going to end up being a dross 1-0 victory. But let's see. It kind of leads us on to thinking about captaincy coverage for all of the days that we've got left. Let's kind of look at the entire period up to and including the final day currently provisionally for Overhaul, which is Sunday, the 23rd of January.
Well said on the provisional. We'll come back to that.
But because there's 9 days, even though it's kind of 2 weeks, sometimes you could have as little as 5 or 6 days covering 2 weeks, but we've got 9, starting with today, West Ham and Norwich. And we've talked about them, definitely West Ham and definitely attacking.
No, Captain Pookie blood.
Friday coming up is Crystal Palace against Brighton. Do you still have Conor Gallagher sitting there?
Yes.
So your hope is that you'd captain Conor Gallagher
yes.
in that fixture?
Yes, I would. I see no reason why he won't be back in the teams. Obviously missed a little spell with COVID. Shouldn't be any reason why he doesn't participate in the game. If he's out, I think I'd buy a Brighton player.
They've got 3 fixtures versus
as opposed to Palace's 2. Yeah.
And then does Liverpool even count as a fixture because it's so tough? Although Palace did the bits at
Brighton,
City,
Chelsea as well, but
yeah.
I
was going to say I've got Sanchez in goal, and I don't mind games like Chelsea or whatever, save points right at the end of the day potentially. So I'm with you. I think I'd go a Brighton player as well, although I wouldn't go Mopay or any of the attacking ones. I think like a Lewis Dunk or one of the defensive ones would do you.
I think because it's such a short period, I'd maybe consider like Trossard as a little bit of a differential punt, reasonable value at 7.9 million, basically no ownership, the top 1,000 would maybe be a nice differential for that night. Then obviously you've got Chelsea, Leicester still to come. I'd definitely go to Brighton player if you're with 3 games still to go. Again, my expendable player would probably be Bernardo Silva. That allows me to go to any position. There is a chance that Dunk might be back Friday night. And if he was in the team, I wouldn't hesitate, because I mean, I don't need the value between Dunk and Webster at the moment. I would just go straight to Lewis Dunk immediately. But I see no reason why Gallagher won't play. He's in 88% of the top 1,000. Most have obviously got the coverage there, and he'll be very, very heavily captained.
Yep. Saturday is not looking as potentially straightforward with City playing Chelsea. What are your thoughts around that at the moment?
So fixtures we've got is obviously City v Chelsea, and you do get to see the team lineup. So,
which is a big advantage. Yeah,
can't rule out Jacques Cancelo and stuff. You've got Ronaldo at Villa in the evening kickoff, and I guess there'll be a few people like me now sitting there with Dominic Calvert-Lewin there away to Norwich. And at the moment, I think with my position as well, I'm most likely to do that.
DCL,
just go Calvert-Lewin at Norwich. I think, yeah.
I'm going to by default probably end up on Cristiano Ronaldo away at Villa.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm not overly excited by it, but I do think
Any doubts about him playing to you?
No.
No, I'm pretty sure he'll be back available as well.
Sunday, you obviously got Liverpool at home to Brentford. Although my only Liverpool asset is Mo Salah, so he's obviously not going to be playing.
No shit.
West Ham's home game against Leeds is pretty decent as well. Although if we're going into, I think Leeds are going to be really up for this game, because if we beat them, that's 5 on the trot over 2 seasons against them. I think they're going to be particularly up for it, and they won't want to come to the London Stadium and lose twice in a week. So I don't think it's going to be as straightforward the league game as the FA Cup was. And then obviously Spurs against Arsenal, North London derby. My inclination might be to move from Mo Salah to Trent, and I'd potentially captain Trent.
Yeah, I don't mind. I think Trent will be the most captain player on Sunday. He's in nearly half of the top 1,000.
Yeah, exactly that. The only other one that I'm looking at is to move on Saturday off Mo Salah and pick up a Watford asset, because I don't have coverage right now for the Watford-Norwich game, and their short run, Newcastle, Burnley, Norwich, makes way more sense to me than even going to Trent, to be honest with you. So Dennis or Josh King, that means that I'd end up defaulting on a West Ham player on the Sunday against Leeds, which is fine. Bowen or Antonio, again, no problem at all. But it does give me another captaincy option against Newcastle on Saturday with the Watford player. So maybe that's the better move for me, is Salah to a Watford player, and that gives me 1 extra fixture or 2 over Salah potentially, and coverage for the single game.
Yeah, I guess we should probably take a step back and say my intention is to buy Josh King on Saturday. There's enough doubt about me with Dennis and this slight niggle to think can he get through 3 games in 7 days, basically, and you need him for the last one, most importantly. So I think I'm going to go King. Plus, in the last fixture against Tottenham in the Premier League, I was obviously at the game at Vicarage Road. They went back to the 2 of them through the middle. King's on the pens. When King was through the middle, his underlying numbers were a little bit better than Dennis's. So again, it's not a money concern. I think it's a very close call. Dennis will be popular. Actually, I think quite a few people may even captain Dennis on Saturday. Away to Newcastle. I'm not a big lover of that personally, but I can see some will go that way. My intention is to go King on Saturday, and obviously the player I would be selling is Conor Gallagher from the Friday night fixture. Yeah.
So what are you doing on the Sunday? Going West Ham then?
Well, I've only got Bowen and Gabriel. I've got no Liverpool coverage. I don't think I can justify it when Bowen at home to Leeds is perfectly reasonable. So it'd be Bowen for me. I would say that I've got Gabriel as well at Tottenham, and he will definitely hit past some tears in that game. I'm almost certain. So he's starting on 5 points, I think. And if something did happen to Bowen, I think I'd just go with that.
Tuesday, you've got Burnley against Watford. So we'd have some Watford coverage, whether it's Emmanuel Dennis or King. And then Brighton versus Chelsea. I have Sanchez in goal, but I also have Rudiger at the back. So my likelihood at the moment is just to go with Rudiger, keep it simple, job done.
I think probably Rudiger, but I'll give a shout out to one of our patrons, who's Chelsea fan, Gary Fantamantle. We said, I think there's only 3 games this season Chelsea have had less than 50% possession. And one of them was the home game very recently against Brighton. We don't expect to get passing tiers against Brighton. So if they don't keep a clean sheet, you're probably looking at a 2-pointer there, which, again, depending on the Burnley situation, I would maybe even swing with King. I mean, I won't make the decision until next Tuesday. Rudiger is fine, of course, but not convinced that the passing tier will be there. It's a difficult game for Chelsea. I think it probably comes down to, do I fancy Chelsea for the clean sheet or not? If not, I might go with King at Burnley.
And on the Wednesday, Leicester, Spurs, Brentford, Manchester United. I mean, King away. The
King, Ronaldo.
Ronaldo. I don't think he's the king, but more like the god, Ronaldo, versus Brentford away. Or obviously Leicester, Spurs, if you have any Leicester or Spurs assets. I don't have any assets from either of those 2 clubs, and I'll be sticking with Ronaldo. I just don't see it worth a transfer at this stage to bother. However, I think Brentford are going to be well up for this. We've seen them at home against the bigger sides really enjoy the occasion and take the game to them and really go for it. So I can't see Ronaldo going huge, but I also don't think that it's worth a transfer to captain someone else. So Cristiano Ronaldo for me on the Wednesday is who I'm going to be going with.
Yeah, absolutely same as that. I've got De Gea as backup. I mean, to be honest, depending on what I see on Saturday, I would maybe even go De Gea in that fixture anyway, because I think United are quite likely for a clean sheet that night. And I like the idea with De Gea especially. It really can be a 22-point captaincy quite quickly. But I think, yeah, Ronaldo, from the ownership perspective and stuff. I don't have any Leicester Tottenham. And probably to take a step back, Suj, any consideration on buying Kane on Sunday?
Yes. Okay, can we leave that? I'll tell you why, James, because I've had a quick scan through the Twitter questions, and somebody did talk about buying Kane, which gives you 3 fixtures between now and the overhaul. And if you captain him, that's potentially 4 for 1 over the likes of Salah. So I wouldn't say no, but it is there in the Twitter question. So we can either answer it now and skip the Twitter question, or answer when we get to Twitter questions.
We'll come back to it, but just briefly on that Wednesday night, then would you go Kane at Leicester or Ronaldo at Brentford? If you had both, plenty will. I say plenty.
I'd stick with Kane. Ronaldo. Excuse me there. Yeah, I'd stick with Ronaldo just because of the opposition. Although Leicester are threadbare at the moment, and particularly at the back as opposed to attacking. It's an option that I haven't made my mind up. I mean, I'm still sitting here with 26 transfers.
I would prefer Ronaldo that night as well.
And we've got the final week, which is just 3 days, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we're into the overhaul period, which we'll talk about in a second. So Watford-Norwich on the Friday, it's whoever I have up front for Watford.
If they're still fit, fingers crossed, King or Dennis, whatever
exactly
you've got,
that.
basically.
Yeah. On the Saturday, there are a number of fixtures. Manchester United at home to West Ham. I don't think that's the easiest. Leeds at home to Newcastle if you're still sitting there with a Rafinha. Man City away at Southampton, and then Wolves are away at Brentford. I may end up defaulting to Rafinha at home to Newcastle.
Yeah, same.
Best fixture on paper, in my opinion. I think West Ham will give Man United a decent game on the Saturday as well. So,
yeah, I can see me. I mean, there's just little confidence in Ronaldo and stuff at the moment. It's almost by default on many of the days you've been going, yeah. To be honest, I think for most of us, if we could have gone back, all that talk for months, even going back to October, November, when the fixtures dropped, you'd be like, oh, you've got to have him. Default to it now and wish you'd gone, probably not bothered. It's not been worth it in terms of the rearranging the team for many people to get him in. He is, of course, if he goes off, he's in over 90% of the top 1,000. It's obviously going to hurt. And it might be that by the time that game comes around, I go, look, the safest play here is just to go with Ronaldo. But yeah, like you, I look at that now and I think Rafinha at home to Newcastle might be the better shout.
Yep. And the final game day before Overhaul, as it stands at the moment, is obviously Sunday. Leicester at home to Brighton. Liverpool are away at Palace, although we don't know we're not expecting anybody back from AFCON by then. Arsenal at home to Burnley. It's not going to be an easy game for Arsenal, and Chelsea at home to Spurs.
So I don't have a lot going on there, actually, because I don't have any Leicester Brighton. I'll have almost definitely sold Gallagher. I've got no Liverpool. All that will leave me with is Rudiger at home to Tottenham and Gabriel at home to Burnley. And it depends what I see from Tottenham over the next couple of days, but it's another one I go, Rudiger, certainty, passing tier. If I don't fancy Tottenham to score that day, I'll go Rudiger. But I think I said this last week about holding on to Gabriel because that Arsenal-Burnley fixture could move, and I'm pleased that I have.
I'm with you. I think Rudiger's my first choice. I've got Ben White sitting there as well. I do have Robert Sanchez away at Leicester as an alternative, should I want to go with him. But I'd take Rudiger or Ben White over Sanchez at the moment.
Interestingly, I think on both of those, the two upcoming Sundays, it might be that Trent is the most captained in both of them. And say for you, with the amount of transfers you've got left, you're then effectively looking at maybe 4 for 0 over certain players. I mean, if you buy him in for Salah and buy him twice and you're captaining him twice, I think that's worth it, Sush, rather than looking elsewhere. So just consider that. Trent twice versus, say, King 3 games but 1 captaincy. It's the same thing, basically, right? Yeah. So just weigh that up in your thinking.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about Overhaul, James. Before we started recording, you added air quotes around the dates of Overhaul, and we did briefly talk about it. This is basically the scenario whereby the Premier League might drop fixtures. They've been given permission to drop fixtures into the international break. And
that doesn't mean they will, of course.
No, of course, but it could happen.
Yeah.
So say they were to whack them in the middle of international break, what do you foresee happening? Shortening of the Overhaul period?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's probably a question we've probably got somewhere, is what's going to happen if fixtures drop in with an Overhaul? Well, quite obviously, they'll move the day. As it stands, Overhaul would open Sunday 23rd. What would be really chaotic is if the Overhaul opened, then on Monday they went, do you know what? Villa are going to play Burnley this coming Saturday. Would be like really chaotic. I don't think that's going to happen. I think if anything gets added to the midweek of 23, which I think is the most likely, you're still keeping a kind of 10-day break there, where then maybe they add fixtures into that midweek after Sunday the 23rd. I reckon we'll probably know about it before this Saturday. I think maybe Saturday this coming weekend, the 15th, would be the latest we'd know. The most likely games are the 3 Amazon games.
Right.
Arsenal, Wolves, Everton, Newcastle, Leeds, Villa, I think are the most likely games. It doesn't mean that other random games like Wolves, Watford, or Watford, Palace, or Burnley, Tottenham can't go into that period. It's just a little bit of possible sense in maybe the 3 Amazon fixtures maybe going in there, because we did have an original thought process. They may all have been played on Wednesday the 19th, which is now obviously not happening. So I think if fixtures get added there, they'll just push the Overhaul back till after those. I would just consider in your mind that when you're selling a player at the moment, if you still are, be cautious of selling players from those potential teams like Calvert-Lewin, Gabriel, Rafinha. I'd just be a little bit careful in case those fixtures suddenly drop. Make sure you've got a little bit of coverage from those if you have it. Obviously, if you don't, potentially you can go back and buy it. I mean, let's say that those fixtures did drop. I mean, you could go and buy an Arsenal player on Sunday 23rd, get you effective 2 captaincies, and it's still worth it if that did happen. Burnley at home and Wolves at home, you'd go, okay, maybe, I'll have that. 2 potential captaincies. Pick a Saka, Martinelli, whatever you think, Gabriel, whatever you think the best option is. I mean, that could be 2 clean sheets, couldn't it? Burnley and Wolves at home. My instinct is it's probably not going to happen, but I think we should be aware of the possibility. What I think is more likely to happen is for one of Aston Villa's games to get rearranged into the FA Cup 4th round weekend. And we discussed this quite a bit of detail on Monday. I think they're more likely to play Burnley than Leeds. Again, because it's a non-televised game, they can just put it at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. Best for fans, doesn't impact anybody else. But if they can fit Leeds Villa into that schedule and Amazon wants our Saturday night game, it'd be a nice compensation for Amazon for obviously losing some of the games over the Christmas period. Now, that would obviously bring the overhaul forward, which obviously technically we're meant to restart on Tuesday the 8th. What it would probably mean is that if, say, Villa v Burnley did happen on Saturday the 5th, then we're all starting with Emi Martinez or Ollie Watkins, I guess. If it's Leeds against Villa, then maybe we're all starting with Rafinha instead. So just be aware that the period between the 23rd of January and 8th of February, it is possible for fixtures to get added to that period, but it is no certainty. And I'm sure if fixtures do get added, Sky will move their overhaul deadlines. If you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be able to make transfers and get 11 Villa players in. No, I'm sure they'll move the dates.
Yeah.
They've done that in the past.
Indeed. So we've had quite a lot of questions in on Twitter, James, like more than normal, I would suggest, as people are trying to figure out any little advantage they can get with the one or two transfers they want to use between now and the overhaul. No doubt there's going to be a few repetitive ones, but how do you fancy getting into these Twitter questions?
I've got a mouthful. Go for it.
Right. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up. First up is Paul Dolan. Is Bernardo Silva worth holding? I like the fact that Bill was mentioned a couple of times, and you obviously are an owner, so you can give a real first-hand opinion on it. Currently 4-4-2. Also owns Rafinha, Gallagher, and Norgard as the other three midfielders.
So it depends what you want to do with it. So let's just say you've got enough money in the bank with the four midfielders to say buy Kane on Sunday or Trent or Jota, whatever you fancy from that, right? Then you could sell obviously Bernardo or Gallagher. It's the same question. All you need to do and reflect on that on the other side is, what do you prefer, Gallagher at home to Liverpool or Bernardo all the way to Southampton? That's what you need to bear in mind. Now, that's not as straightforward as it might sound, because at least you know Gallagher will play against Liverpool. Bernardo might be a sub. Who knows? That's quite far away. So, yes, he's expendable. I think realistically, the reason why he's kind of the plan to move on in all of my potential scenarios as first one to go, right, I'll like, if Bowen's not playing tonight, right, I'll sell Bernardo. I know that I'm definitely not captaining him. And actually, nearly every other player in my squad, if certain things trigger, I might need over this period. Bernardo Silva is the one I definitely do not need. So, again, it's a little bit dependent on what's in your own team, but I'm going to guess that most of you have got a Manchester City defender still. Therefore, Bernardo is expendable, isn't he? Yeah. But depending on when you're making the transfer, so is Gallagher. If you were selling one tonight, Gallagher or Bernardo, you sell Bernardo, don't you? You want Gallagher for Friday. If you're selling on Saturday, you're selling Gallagher, aren't you? Because Bernardo's still got a fixture that day. Unless, of course, suddenly the Man City team drops and Bernardo's not in the squad, then, of course, you could move him on instead. If you're going to Sunday, it's kind of flip of a coin between the two.
And Shadebidabis says, Kane or Jota, no captaincy required on either. So all the days, the 9 days are covered. Having said that, see, I personally, I don't know if I'm mad, but I'd go Kane over Jota because I don't know what Liverpool will be like without Salah, Mane, Keita, whoever else has gone off to AFCON. So I'd prefer Kane, to be honest with you. His shots in the box is increasing and his involvement's been getting better, back to some kind of form. I don't know. I feel like I fancy Kane.
I think, honestly, if it's no captaincy required, you need to follow what's happening with the Leicester story. I anticipate Leicester are going to play Burnley at the weekend. I anticipate they'll play Tottenham next midweek. But if something looks dodgy after the Burnley game, then suddenly it's 2 games for each, and Jota's 2 are obviously definitely better. The flip of that is you could look at it and go, there's 2 games Wednesday night, and you might have no coverage from the Leicester-Tottenham game, and it might be better to pick up coverage from that as an alternative in case, say you're sitting there with just Ronaldo, Brentford United gets called off, or suddenly Ronaldo's on the bench. That alone makes Kane a little bit better, even more so than the extra fixture. It's just actually having that alternative captaincy option that maybe you can't see now. But just break it down blankly, does Kane 3 games outscore Jota over 2? I'm not certain that he will.
We've got a number of questions around King and Dennis, James. So SkyFF Bruno, for example, he says Dennis or King on Saturday. But FPL Hambone says, is Dennis really a risk to start? I'm thinking about getting both Dennis and King for Salah and Gallagher on Saturday.
I don't hate that. Actually.
FPL Ben says, his son to Dennis the best move? Owning Antonio and Ronaldo. So he already owns those, I'm assuming. If so, what should I do with that money?
Do you know what? I hadn't considered that. That's a really interesting idea, going with the two. You'd be shit unlucky if both get injured, right, by the time the Norwich game comes around. And of course, on the Tuesday night against Burnley and the Friday night against Norwich, you can make a decision based on what the Watford likely lineup is in terms of whether you think, say, King's going to play through the middle or not. If they're going to both play through the middle, which they did against Tottenham, but we shouldn't judge that on some of the easier games coming up, then generally I still prefer King. Partly as well, I think for myself, like I'm chasing, right? And I'm still trying to come first, as ridiculous as it sounds. So I want to go with a differential player when it's a flip coin like that at the moment. And of course, it's not a long-term hold, right? We are making over 3 games. Could either outscore the other? Of course, absolutely. So I want to flip with the differential at this stage. I think for the majority of people nearer the top, it's probably safer to flip with Dennis, right? So it depends what you want from that as well, because it's close. You can look at the statistics all you want. The team might drop, and we won't get to see it on Saturday if you're buying Saturday. And I do think that's the right thing to do, is to buy on Saturday. You won't get to see the team beforehand, so you don't know where they're going to play. We can't say with certainty that Dennis will be fit, although Ranieri will obviously have a press conference between now and Saturday. And I know that he did train for Watford yesterday on Tuesday, so should be okay. But it's a flip. It really is a coin flip, and it's dependent about where you're at and what you want, I think, rather than the value between the players, because it's such a short-term decision.
Ed wants to know the best Salah replacement with captaincies already covered.
Good question.
There's a few teams with 3 fixtures, obviously yourselves and Spurs. Watford have 3 fixtures left. West Ham have 3 fixtures left, 2 of which are home, Norwich and Leeds. So it depends how important is this extra fixture game for you.
I think what I would be doing with that is I'd probably be buying from one of the teams that's playing next midweek. So if you're sitting there with Tuesday, obviously from the question is obviously got King or Dennis up front already. It has to, if you're saying it's already completely covered, right? So if you don't have Brighton-Chelsea coverage, would you consider going into even a Rudiger? I know it's not an ideal way to City on Saturday and saying, look, we'll take the 3 fixtures. You've probably already got the Chelsea. If you only have, say, Ronaldo as covered previously with Brentford United and Leicester v Tottenham, do you consider like Kane on Sunday? So you might have captaincy all the way up covered. I'd consider the secondary option. And then actually, if you have secondary options everywhere, bar Watford, I'd consider it. King and Dennis.
FPL Commander says, with 18 transfers used, now sitting with treble West Ham, Bowen and Antonio must be 2. I'm not sure who the third might be. Maybe Ben Rama. I can't be Ben Rama because he's gone to AFCON. I'd hope it wasn't. And just TAA and Ronaldo doubts. Should I hold on till Overhaul? I don't particularly think that TAA, who had COVID and it was over a week ago, and Ronaldo
he should play tomorrow night, Trent.
Are doubts. And I didn't see anything on Sunday from Bowen or Antonio that made me think that they could be risks either. So FPL, I don't know who your third West Ham is, but I do think, hold them because they've Liverpool have got decent games. Ronaldo gives you some captaincy options, and West Ham have got decent fixtures as well for the first 2 anyway. United away is a bit more difficult. So I don't think it's worth wasting any transfers.
If West Ham were playing Saturday rather than Sunday, then Declan Rice, for example, or even one of the forward players could become expendable in the same way I've spoken about Bernardo Silva. Realistically, if there are no fixtures added to the weekend after 23, Sunday is probably the last time any of us should be making transfers.
Okay.
You don't really want, beyond Sunday the 16th, you don't really want to be making any. You don't want to be in a position come Wednesday the 19th where Tottenham have got Leicester away and Chelsea away, and that's the only fixture, and you're suddenly scrambling to go, oh shit, I've got no captaincy tonight, I need to do it. No, you buy on Sunday, don't you? If you need to cover that, you buy the Tottenham player against Arsenal on Sunday. So Sunday's the kind of cut-off, and as West Ham are playing Sunday, that makes their assets more difficult to sell, and it's a good fixture. So, no, I think keep them.
Money Mace, asked about Salah, which we talked about, but also Livramento, with the caveat that he needs coverage for Brighton versus Palace. Now, I mean, if Dunk dropped into the team, Livramento to Dunk, assuming you had the money, would be quite easy, wouldn't it?
I would, as I said, if you're buying Friday night and got no coverage, I'd buy a Brighton player at this stage.
They've got the extra fixture and
extra game, possible
well.
Backup coverage for the Tuesday night against Chelsea as well. I'd go a Brighton player rather than Gallagher. But selling Livramento is fine. He's extremely unlikely to be back before Overhaul. He doesn't need an operation now, but it's full February at best for him.
Yeah. James Ingram, with someone with more than the average transfers and in the top 100, well, I would disregard that average transfers. And it's like 15 in the top 100, isn't it? Maybe even less.
There'll be someone near the top that's got 25 to 30.
Yeah. So disregard the average, James, but well done for being in the top 100. James has no coverage tonight. Is it necessary to bring someone in? Yes. It's Norwich West. I mean, West Ham could, if it was 5-0 tonight, it wouldn't surprise you. Also, if it was 1-1, it wouldn't surprise you, but it could easily go on.
Yeah, it would. If it was 1-1, it would surprise me.
Yeah, true, to be fair. No issues with formation. So the options that James has put down on the table are Maguire or Rafinha to Bowen or Antonio. Which would you do, James?
That's close, that, because I think you need to look ahead to Saturday 22nd, and you and I have concluded we may end up captaining Rafinha. Therefore, it makes the fixtures between the two the same. I'm not sure I'd want to bin Maguire with, but if Maguire say your one and only backup to Ronaldo, I wouldn't want to bin him.
No,
you don't. In theory, Rafinha is more expendable. There are probably alternatives for you on Sunday the 16th and Saturday 22nd, and as they have two fixtures. Actually, he's probably the more expendable.
Bob Jack 71. Is there a second half league this year or have Sky given up on it? It's usually after Overhaul, isn't it?
I can't remember if they did it last year. I think they gave
up. They gave you a third team. Third team with only 20 transfers, isn't it, in Sky? For the second half of the season?
But I'm pretty sure team?
It's post-Overhaul.
I'm not sure.
They gave you a third team post-Overhaul.
Without the cup, I don't know if there'll be any point in it unless they're going to have a different cup competition.
Well, let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure is the honest answer there then. But I thought it was always after Overhaul and you only had 20.
It is normally after Overhaul. No, you still get all 40, I think.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Tidy.
I mean, if they're not going to have a cup competition or anything, I would store them up and smash into them for like April or something and try and win the manager of the month. I
think. Dan wants to think a little bit left field. This is Dan Kerwin. He says Lukaku as a left field pick. Since it's only short term. Thoughts on him as captain versus Brighton and Tottenham? I'm thinking Rudiger's not nailed for passing versus Brighton, and you're right. James mentioned earlier, obviously, the possession stats and what have you. And he could bully the Spurs defence. Well, he's not wrong about that.
No, it's not in fairness.
Yeah, but I mean, it is left field, Dan. I suppose if you have transfers to burn and really fancy a differential captain and you want to make up ground, I don't mind it. But I also do think he's just come back from COVID and injury. So it's not one for me. But I also don't hate it.
It's not for me either. I mean, look, once you drop, the thing is, right, look at that Tuesday night, even with what we're saying about Rudiger, just stop, think about it for a moment. Lukaku versus Rudiger for captaincy at Brighton, Tuesday the 18th.
Yeah.
In spite of what I'm saying, it's probably still close because there's much chance of Rudiger getting a clean sheet. Lukaku doesn't get the shot volume away of the likes of Salah or Ronaldo or Kane when they're at their peak. So he's not much. I think he's someone I kind of wrote early and went, don't fancy him as a Sky option. As a differential, and particularly for that Sunday 23rd, great option. But it wouldn't be, I mean, it wouldn't go through my mind at the moment to buy Lukaku rather than King or Dennis, as ridiculous as that sounds.
Yeah. I'm Batman Joe. Which do you prefer? You got A or B here, James. So one's a daisy, one's two moves, kind of daisy chain a little bit, but not really. And one just goes direct. Son to Antonio, meaning Gallagher to King, or just Son to King? I like Antonio. To add to that, Joe will captain Antonio over Bowen against Norwich and Leeds.
Then I wouldn't do it. Historically, you buy a player to move your captaincy on the day is an unnecessary transfer that's going to come back and bite you on the bum. If you're buying him and still going to captain Bowen in a perverse way, that might justify it more. We've all done it. We've all bought a player on, say, a Sunday to get us a better captaincy, and the new captain's blanked and the original captain's gone off. We've all been there, and it's regrettable. I did that with like Bowen when he played against Burnley, and whoever else that day went off a little bit. So no, in that case, I'd maybe just go straight to King at the weekend. Also, you're sitting there with one up front at the moment. I'm not quite sure how that works.
The next question comes in from TC. What do you guys consider to be a low amount of transfers going into Overhaul?
Low?
15?
Yeah. But 15 or below. I mean, the majority of players are going to be comfortably above that. My 2 transfers are going to leave me with 20. I mean, that'll probably be, in terms of the engaged players, that'll probably be about par, about 20. I mean, if you're down to 16, 17, absolutely fine. No drama, no concern.
We have a question coming in from Jay, who only has Declan Rice. Should I get either Antonio or Bowen for Wednesday's game, so tonight's game, or stick with what I've got and save the transfer? Bit hard
so
to...
ironic. Watch Declan Rice go and score twice tonight now, considering what I just said.
Yeah, it depends how many transfers you have, Jay. Let's just say, assuming you got more than 20 transfers, I'd probably get Antonio or Bowen. Rice has been taking a lot of free kicks recently, and against Leeds at the weekend, he took most of the free kicks in and around the box, and they were all shit as well, to be honest with you. You either skied them or the delivery was crap. So yeah, they weren't good free kicks, but he was on them all in and around the box. It could hurt you, but I'd still prefer Antonio or Bowen all day long.
This is a little bit different to the other one, talking about moving from Bowen to Antonio. He just feels a lot more appealing moving it from Rice to, we're talking difference here. We're talking about sitting midfielder to one of the attacking players. But I also think just having Declan Rice tonight is perfectly acceptable. Perfectly acceptable. Because if he's going to get that rare goal that he gets once every 2 months or so, this is the sort of night it might drop, right?
Yeah.
So I do think it's acceptable to stay with him.
Neil's got a very interesting question. Do you think that the eventual winner of the competition sits in the top 10, 100, 1,000 or 5,000 at the minute? Well, we know it's Dave Perrins.
It's sitting first. It's Dave Perrins. Yeah,
it's number 10. So 10, top 10.
The rest of you might as well give up. No.
Please do.
It's so difficult to say, right? Because if someone's sitting at 2,000 at the moment and they've got 30 transfers left, I would not rule them out at all. So that's impossible to say.
Yeah. We have a question coming in from the Flower Pot Man. Let's have a bit of fun, guys. Would you rather be on 1,850 points with 15 transfers left, or 1,750 points with 23 transfers
I
left?
Wouldn't even have the first idea or clue of how many points I've got at the moment.
I've got 1,580. So Dave's got 1,920. So 1,850 would probably put you... I'm just having a look here. 1,850 would put you top 40.
So say it again.
1,850 would put you top 40.
Yeah. Now, how many transfers left with it?
15.
And what's the alternative?
100 points less, but you'd probably be in and around the top 1,000.
But with how many transfers left?
23.
Oh, I'd have the 8 extra transfers.
Yes, I'm with you on that. 100 points, 100 points, 8 transfers. Yes, I'd have the transfers as well. I'm with you on that. Let's move it along, James. Gordon Bell, Smith wrote to Rafinha on Sunday with a view to captaining Rafinha versus Newcastle next week. Or would it be best to hold the transfer and just captain Cancelo versus Southampton instead?
I mean, I really don't like that. If Smith Rowe's available for Sunday, and there's no reason to think that he won't be, I don't like that. Smith Rowe's got a fixture on Sunday. There must be someone you can sell for the Saturday.
Yeah. Luke is in a 4-3-3 and would like a Watford asset until the overhaul to take advantage of their games. Everyone seems likely to go to King or Dennis, but he doesn't want to take out his front three of Ronaldo, Kane and Antonio. Is there anything defensively or midfield, or I'd move on Ronaldo?
No, I'm not going to start selling you defensive options from a football team that has yet to keep a clean sheet this season. Even Norwich have kept a clean sheet this season. So no, there's nothing I can sell you. Even if we went, be clever, get Backman. Foster's close to being fit. He can't even go down that route. So no, it genuinely Watford is King or Dennis. Don't overthink that with anything else. There was a period where I thought Kucha might be interesting as a cheap budget option. But listen, it's so short term. Nah, go in for one of the guys. The three you've got up front, Antonio, what was it? Antonio, Ronaldo, and who?
Kane. James isn't
It's tough, that.
You froze like you.
It's tough.
Is Zoom broken? I was worried there.
No, it really is tough, actually, because Antonio and Kane play on the Sunday, you shouldn't be selling that. Ronaldo is obviously playing the same day. Saturday's difficult. Then you've got the Wednesday. He's obviously got the fixture against Brentford as well. And obviously Kane's got the extra fixture. Your solution might be Antonio to King or Dennis on Tuesday the 18th. An unusual one where you wait the extra one, you miss Antonio against Manchester United, and then you take the Watford player in for the Burnley and the Norwich games. That seems like the right idea to me. Still be effective 3-for-1. So I think that's your solution. Antonio to one of them on Tuesday the 18th.
Dave, the leader of the entire game, says, who do you think scores more, King over 3 games or Dennis over the second 2 games? Could be either or. It's just a difficult one.
King.
You still fancy King, don't you?
King. I'm saying King over the 3 between the 2 of them anyway. So,
yeah. Steve,
it's a coin flip. I keep saying that, it's a coin flip.
This is a conversation we started earlier. Bilver to Kane on Sunday for a 3-for-1 and a 4-for-1 if he ends up captaining Kane as well. Is it a luxury move or one that you would do? 4-for-1 sounds interesting.
It's probably not going to be for me. I mean, as it stands, I'm going Gallagher to King on Saturday, and that's me done. Now, admittedly, of course, I'm then blocked from Kane anyway because I've got Calvert-Lewin as well for Saturday. So it'd be off the table for me, but then I wouldn't consider going Calvert-Lewin to Kane on the Sunday, which I could do. Miss Calvert-Lewin at home to Villa, and then you've got the 3 fixtures of Kane. Not without Sonny, not for me. I don't think I'd be captaining Kane, therefore it's not worth it for me.
Ron wants to know whether you would bring in a Watford asset on Saturday and you'd obviously get the extra fixture.
Yeah.
But accept that there's more risk because of if there's a postponement on the single game day, or would you wait until Tuesday for the Burnley-Watford game? Less games, but a clearer picture of who is available.
I think you've got to go with what you can see. And if it bites you, then it's going to bite so many people. Listen, Watford Norwich on Friday 21st could get postponed, couldn't it? Any game could get postponed at the moment. I think you've got to play with what you see in front of you. The opportunity really is to move on Palace player Gallagher. We've all got, if you've got 4 in midfield, Gallagher to King Dennis on Saturday is straightforward for me as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to wait for others. Like the other one we just had as an example is really awkward because the 3 forwards. Fine, make the move on the Tuesday. Can't be having people wait for the Friday. For some people, it'd be better to wait till Tuesday. It's not for me. It's better to go on the Saturday. You can't be sitting there on Tuesday night and going, oh, well, what if this happens between now and Friday? That can happen at any point of the season anyway. Forget COVID. The advantage is there. That's what you've got to go with.
And the last question of the show, James, goes to Kevin from FPL Bus Team. A prediction legend. What players, if any, are worth a punt before Overhaul? Anyone that you really fancy? I just think no. Because you're not only
really,
punting their performance, you're punting them playing, you're punting the appearance points as well. Just nothing that exciting.
Those midweek fixtures next week anyway, as we discussed on our pod on Monday, they're shite. And they're still shite from a Sky perspective as well. There's nothing there. You look at them fixtures, the 2 fixtures on Tuesday the 18th and the 2 fixtures on Wednesday 19th. And who do you honestly see from those 4 fixtures going mental?
Yeah.
No one. No one particularly. We've been talking about Rudiger, probably no passing tiers and stuff. Ronaldo at Brentford, yeah, great. Do we actually expect Ronaldo to score more than 1 in that fixture? No, not really. In terms of punt players, I think there were a few good Leicester options available last night if they'd have played, but that moment has has gone. And the fact they play Saturday the 15th rather than Sunday the 16th makes that a no for me as well. Unless, look, you can move Gallagher to Tielemans, Maddison, Barnes on Saturday the 15th. I guess from a punt perspective, he's probably one of them Leicester midfielders.
And that, James, wraps the Twitter questions for this episode of Sky Fantasy Football. Do you want to give the listeners a brief glimpse into what we've got left coming this week? And I'll let them know about Patreon and your amazing spreadsheet for Sky players as well.
Clash of Correspondents tomorrow. I recorded that with Lee Jackson and Gary Robinson last night. That's Aston Villa versus Manchester United. We talked quite a bit in detail. He's relevant to Sky a lot in terms of United's problems and what's happening with Ronaldo and stuff. Friday, me and Suj are going to do FPL free hits. We're very unlikely to be activating that shit, but we'll look at what we would do if we were. What we still got on Patreon to come this week. Tottenham tomorrow.
Tottenham tomorrow after the
Tottenham
games.
And West Ham games tonight. We'll have our game week 22 preview on Patreon on Friday as well.
Fantastic. So if you are an active Sky player and just an active fantasy manager and like football and hanging out with cool people, you may want to consider our Patreon, where we have a very active Slack channel. Lots of people helping each other out, fans of different teams that you might not follow and support, giving you help and advice. We run some prize leagues as well across a number of fantasy games, and you also get additional podcasts like the ones that James just mentioned. Patreon.com/Planet FPL helps keep the lights on.
Gaffer special out today as well. If anyone's
playing
Gaffer
indeed.
Fantasy,
if you're a championship
released that with Dan Ashby this morning.
Football fan, covering off everything to do with chip strategy in that, which is much more complicated, right? You've got way more chips and way more things you can do. So
in Gaffer Fantasy, the championship fantasy games are mad at the moment. You've got double game week this week, next week's a double game week, then it's a normal week, then there's a blank game with only 8 teams playing. It's crazy.
Wow, indeed. So if you're a keen Gaffer player, another reason you may want to come and join the fun. Other than that, just leaves me to say, look after yourselves, and I hope you're all staying safe. Back at you tomorrow. Thanks for the support, and ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, Mad Child.